sometimes we want to log into a server to get data. We might need to log in because we are protected, for example, maybe a bank account or a site like the New York Times. You want to look at the archives and you want to pull data from there. You need to log in or have an account with them before you can do that. Those kind of things. So there's a wall, a paywall perhaps, or some other kind of wall that separates you from the data. So and you need to log in for that. So logging in actually involves sending data, sending your username and password to the server, and it requires filling in a form and sending the form data to the server. So let's take a look at that, and that'll actually, it's a good example because sometimes you need to send a form anyway. Like for example, you want to search a page and you want certain keywords, or you want to have a certain search criteria that you want to set. So rather than having to go to the end page, you can write a program that sets the criteria and then sends those criteria to the server and gets the results back. So being able to fill a form and send that to the server is actually quite useful. So the form that we'll fill is a login form. So let's take a look at how we log into a web server, and what we're going to do is we're going to use Wikipedia as our example here. And what you might want to do is open an account with Wikipedia if you don't already have one, and get a username and password just to test this out. I'm not going to share mine with you because I think Wikipedia will be very unhappy if millions of us log in on the same account and start messing up. So that's the idea there. So what I'm doing here, and this is not a bad idea when you're when you're writing a program that involves logging into stuff, is to put things inside a file. And that file can be a binary file, for example, that nobody can read, or maybe an encrypted file or something like that. And what you can do then is you can read the contents of the file using your program, and then people don't actually see the username and password, but it gets used anyway. So for example, if you're writing a web application and you're logging in from your server, then the client won't see the username and password. It's sitting on your server separately. That's the idea there. So I'm going to read them in over here, and I will, this will hopefully work, but we won't test it out. So here I write a bunch of code over here which says open wikidata.txt, which is my file, as f. And again, I think we did this before, that what this says is that f is a file that will be open only in this block over here, only in the with block. And once the block ends, the file will no longer be accessible. And then I'll read the username as from content 0 of the file, and password from line 1. So that's line 0 and line 1. Okay, and we're splitting the file, reading the entire file here, and splitting it on \n, so end of line characters, because the first line contains the username and the second line contains the password. So I read that in. So hopefully that worked fine. We won't know, but we'll do that. Now, the next thing you need to do is to figure out what the page looks like. So let's see what we can do with that. So the page that you want to go to for Wikipedia's login is this page over here. So let's go there. So this is the Wikipedia login page, and we can see it has here a username input box and a password input box, and then it has keep me logged in for 365 days, a checkbox, and login. And if we look at the page contents itself, so let me right click here and see the source. We'll see that the source contains all this stuff is going to be inside a form. Yeah, so here we have the inputs. Remember, a form contains input fields, and the input fields are where the data actually comes in. So here we find that there's a bunch of input fields over here, and here's the username, div for WP1, input for here. So this is the username, WP name 1. And the name of the field. So what you want to do is you want to look for the input tags, all the input tags, and look for the name of the field that the input tag is capturing. Because remember, this is the name that's going to be used by the server to get the value that you send it. So we need to know that. So we find that the input tag with WP name here, and we actually find there's another one for password as well. So that's WP password over here, input WP password. And then there's a lot of other stuff as well. There are actually quite a few input fields. There's an input field here called WP edit token, and that's hidden. Hidden means that we don't see it on the page, but it is there, and it has to go back. If it doesn't go back, you won't log in. So you really need to find all the inputs that are there on the page and figure out what values need to go back, whether you're entering that value or not. And more important than all this, there is yet another field here called WP login token, this one over here. And that has a value. What Wikipedia does is it sends this value each time you open the page. So if I take a look at this, for example, it ends with DB006. And if I reload this page and go down and take a look at it, where is it? Here. We see now it's DB08E. It's a different token. So every time we refresh the page, we get a different token value. That's their way of, some kind of security, just making sure that the page that you're logging in from is a page that they gave you, not a page that you created yourself. So it's a kind of security there. So you want to figure out all the inputs there, and I've done that already here for us. So we can go back to our